The Creek series started out as a fantasy trilogy focused on the Harrison and Brown families. The characters of Samuel, Latasia, Althea, and Benjamin were developed as side characters in that original trilogy with their own side storylines that would have evolved throughout the series. After changing genres, I decided to adapt their side storylines to fit the new genre as well. The actual idea of In the Last Days came about during the production of the first Creek book. Originally, I was going to keep the story to a trilogy, but then I found myself deciding to write a fourth book to wrap up and bring to the forefront the storylines that were going on in the background. The biggest theme of In the Last Days is coming of age and realizing what it really means to be an adult. It's really like something that excited me about writing this book because it's like I remember what it was like when I finally became an adult. And it's like when you're a child, you think adulthood's going to be one way, and then you hit it and you're like, wait, this is not what I thought it was going to be. But then as you get further into it, it becomes more and more clear that it's not what you thought it was going to be at all. I'm in my mid 20s now, right? And I can definitely say that my concept of what I thought adulthood was going to be like as a child was definitely different from what I thought it was going to be coming into it. And it's definitely different from what I thought it was like in the 18 to 21 age range. That's the biggest theme in this story, and that's what excites me about this story. I didn't do a lot of heavy research for this book because a lot of what took place in this book were already topics I had previously researched for the previous books in the series. However, I did do a little bit of research on like small things in the story just so I could get a basic understanding of how they are supposed to work. The writing process for In the Last Days was very interesting to me because coming off of The Tide of New Beginnings, The Tide of New Beginnings was a huge undertaking of a book for me. And so coming into this book, I'm going to be completely honest, I was actually very relaxed with this book. So today is March 14th. Let's talk about how this book writing has been going, okay? You know, my goal was to try and have part one done by the end of this month, but I don't know if I'm going to make that goal specifically. I might not have it complete, but I'm going to have a good chunk of it done. I finally got everybody's storyline sorted out, so I know for the most part what everybody's got going on. I'm just excited to write it and just to get it out there. I've already started on the research portion for it, and the research is going really well. And hopefully I'll be able to get this how I want it to be in time for release at the end of this year. Today is May 1st. I want to talk about my progress on the book, right? So I'm not where I want to be at all. You know, the book is split into 3 parts, and I was hoping by the time we hit May, I would be done with part 1 so I could transition into part 2. But I'm not done with part 1, so I'm not where I want to be. However, I plan to finish part 1 by the end of this month because I'm ready for part 1 to be done. That way I can move into part 2 because I don't want to have a situation that's happened like in the past 2 years with the previous 2 books where we was towards the latter half of the year rushing to finish it, trying to make deadline. I want us to have it done and ready to go and not be super stressed out. So today is May 28th. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't really made no real progress. Like, I'm still kind of like just writing down scenes as they come to me and just writing them out. I was hoping to have the first like part of the book done by the end of this month, but it's just been a lot of things going on in my personal life. Nothing bad, it's all been good. That's been taking up a lot of my time. So going into June, I definitely plan to like get something significant done with this book. Something that's not like gonna have me like super behind. We're gonna get it done on time. That's what's gonna happen. So today is July 8th. I want to talk about how the writing of this book is going. I did not meet what I wanted to do in the month of June, but that's okay because I actually did make like significant progress. It's just I didn't get all the way done. So today I want to talk about like not only how it's going, but like what I'm trying to do with this book. This book is split into 3 parts. I'm trying to do something similar to what I did with Tide of New Beginnings. With the younger perspectives, I'm trying to give them like a younger type perspective, and with the older perspectives, a more older perspective. I'm trying to do that. That's what is going on with the writing of In the Last Days. I'm excited for this book. I can say this, each book in the Creek series so far has had its own writing experiment attached to it. As far as writing-wise, experimentally, I did make use of the mechanic I used in Tide of New Beginnings, where it was like writing the teenage characters in like teen-style writing and writing the adult characters with more adult-style writing. Today is July 19th, and I'm doing some research for writing this book, right? I'm reading the like middle school books that I was supposed to read them last year while writing the title New Beginnings, but because of like how time went and the time constraints, I ended up just taking the first chapters of each book and analyzing them to accomplish my goal. But this year, I'm making sure I actually put aside some time to actually read through them and actually like get a feel for like how they tell story and how they approach like themes and stuff like that. Because one thing I came across while just reading the first chapters was that a lot of these books have like very like, I'm not gonna say like mature themes, but like they're not themes you would really expect to be in children's media, but they were there. And they handled them in a way that was easy for children to understand. And so I'm kind of like reading through them fully now to like get an understanding of like how to approach those themes, because I want it to be a clear distinction between those two voices and like those two perspectives, because the way you think of things as a child is not the same way you think of things as an adult. And I want that to be clear and I want that to be reflected in the work. Today is September 5th, and I need to do an update on how writing this book is going. It's actually going pretty okay. Like, it's not going terribly. I'm still confident that we're gonna make it in time for deadline, as long as I do what I need to do this month. This month is really critical to determining whether we're gonna get to do what I want to do, or whether I'm going to be super stressed out in November and December. I am going to be doing my absolute best to get as much done as I can this month. Like, granted, it's not like I'm doing the whole thing all at once this month. That's not the case. Like, we have a good chunk written down, right? But I'm just trying to get myself in a position to where it's like when October comes, we should be finishing up the writing. So that way, November, December, I can be editing, because that's what I want. I felt very relaxed writing in the last days. I would even go so far as to say too relaxed, because there came a point towards the end of the writing of the book where it was like, okay, deadline's getting close and we are not necessarily where we should be. So we need to kind of like pick up the pace a little bit. Today is November 1st. I'm just going to be completely honest about this book and like the writing of the book, right? I've been honest, but it's November 1st. I'm not where I want it to be by the time we hit November, but by the time November ends, I plan to be done writing. It's not like I'm going to write the whole book in 1 month. Like, that's not what's going to happen. I have a significant amount done. But when we hit November, I want it to be finished writing, but I'm not done writing. I'm finishing up the writing and I'm just, like getting things how I want them to be. I feel pretty confident about how this story is going to turn out. I'm not going to say I'm hoping, I know we're going to accomplish this goal. Today is November 30th, and I want to talk about how writing this book has gone. So, we are nearing the end of the year. Halfway through November, I was like, okay, we gotta get this done. We can do it. We can make it. And now that we're at the end of November, I feel a lot better than I have been feeling about it the past few days. So that's good. But at this point, the question is not, are we going to get it done? It's, once again, the question is it going to be what I want it to be? I feel like I have that question with every book in the series so far, except for the first one. And I honestly think a huge part of that is because the first book had such a much longer time to be developed. Also, I feel like it's also a case of when we went into the first book, I had only written 2 books before that. Those weren't very strenuous, whereas like it was like a book I had been wanting to write for a while. So it's like I was excited for it, right? Whereas this is like book number 7, and it's like we've been hitting them back to back to back to back to back. So I'm wondering if part of the reason why I've been struggling so much this year with writing this book is because I'm fatigued. Okay, even though I take like a month rest at the beginning of the year, it's not really a rest, because it's like even with the month rest, I was still like planning and working and like, so I was resting, but I wasn't. I think after this book, I'm going to take a for real like break. My favorite part of writing in the last days was finally getting to write the characters growing into their adult selves. One of the challenges I faced as the series has progressed is the fact that I developed this story between the ages of 17 and 21, and the storylines and the characters reflect that. However, as I've gotten older, I've wanted to write more about topics that are relatable to my adult life and the adult lives of those around me, and what we're facing and what we can relate to. Another challenge I faced was trying to remember what it was like to be that young age and to think and make decisions at that young age, even though with every new book, I've quickly been aging out of that age range. And so that's why it was exciting for me to finally get to write the characters coming into their adult selves, because that meant I could finally write about topics that are more relatable to where I'm at in life. And that also meant that I could stop trying to remember what it was like to be young and actually get to grow into being an adult in my real life. Because trying to remember and maintain that mindset has kind of, I'm not going to say stunted my growth as an adult, but it has kind of affected my adulthood a little bit. Because I remember after I got done writing In the Last Days, it was kind of like this weird space, because I'm like in my mid 20s, and it's like for so long I've been trying to remember what like late teen and early 20s was like so that I could write the book. But now it's like, okay, now that part is done, and now that time in the story is done, and it's like now I'm in my mid 20s in real life, and it's like now the characters are in their adulthood. So it's like now I got to come into my adulthood. Even though I've been in my adulthood, it's been a weird transition in my own personal life. So it was kind of nice to be able to have the characters entering their transition to adulthood as I'm kind of entering into mine, kind of in my mid 20s. So that's been my favorite part of writing the story. The hardest part of writing In the Last Days was writing In the Last Days. For context, In the Last Days is the seventh book in my author career. And I've written the books back to back, mostly because for the Creeke series and the Creeke protagonist, I wanted to be able to get the story out while they're young, and I could still somewhat remember and relate to what it was like to be in that 17 to 21-ish age range. And also because these protagonists of this story are coming from families that have mostly been side characters throughout the series, I kind of had to introduce three new family dynamics into the forefront in a storyline that's mostly focused on the Browns and the Harrisons. And so that was also something else that was kind of a challenge, was trying to like flesh out their family dynamic and make it kind of like mesh with the rest of the series. It was an undertaking, and it was definitely an experiment. It kind of felt like a much needed break after finishing Tidy New Beginnings. And I knew during the writing of In the Last Days that I was going to need a break once I got done with it, because I could feel in myself that I was burnt out and that I just did not have it in me to push out any more written books after this book. I knew I needed a break because I was struggling to get this book written, in a sense of like, I didn't feel like writing it, but I knew I needed to get it done because of what it was going to do in the series and what it was going to represent and what it was going to stand for within the series. And another reason why I was so like, I need to get this done is because I don't like bringing work into like the new year, right? So with every book so far that I've written, I've tried to keep them within the year that I've written them in, to have them come out in that same year. And so with this book, I was like, okay, I'm writing this in 2024. I want it to come out in 2024. And so I didn't want to bring it into 2025 because it's like, it's no need. Like, it's on the shorter end of the series in terms of storyline and pages. Like, it shouldn't need all of that. To make a long story short, I was burnt out and I needed some rest after this book because I had written 7 books back to back and I was tired. Today is December 31st, 2024. And I'm not going to lie, I've been very stressed out for the past week and a half because we were getting close to the end of the year, and I'm going to be honest, the writing for the book was not done. And that made me feel very sad because I had worked hard trying to get it done on time, and it still was not done. But I'm here to say that it's finished. I don't know how I feel about it yet as a story, but they are done. As always, audiences can expect a book that I put a lot of time, effort, and my heart into writing. And so with that being said, In the Last Days is out now for purchase, so go get your copy.